So in today's environment, with the winter being where it's at, and depending on your latitude and longitude and your ability to be outside and expose yourself, getting vitamin D naturally through the sun and it forming kind of these pre-cholesterol D3 and that D3 being absorbed into your kidneys and liver, right? Its odds are going to be pretty low. So we're going to have to supplement this time of year. That's going to be without a doubt. And we got to get our vitamin D levels up to an optimal range as well, because we need to be at least above 50 on the United States metric for vitamin D. That's important. If you have an autoimmune issue, if you have any cancer predispositions, you probably want to be even as high as 70 to 100, but at least 50 on the vitamin D side to really maintain optimal immune function.
And this is something you can actually test at home now, which is pretty cool. So there are some labs that you and I can work with where we can get people some dried blood spot testing. But if you're working with us clinically, we might as well just run a full blood panel looking into thyroid and everything else. Because if you have other symptoms, you could take vitamin D and not fix yourself, meaning it's great to optimize that, but you could still have other issues. So you could just do the at-home blood panel, or if we're going to get you to the lab, we might as well look at everything else. And you're not looking at an expensive test. It's kind of hard to believe that this is not standard practice, but you go to your conventional doctor down the road and they run basic blood work on you. They're not going to run vitamin D unless you ask for it. And even then, they may say, oh, it's not covered by insurance. So what is your reply? Because it's generally only going to be maybe 20, maybe $50 US max to test this. This is not an expensive test.
No, it's definitely not an expensive test. Now, in general, I'll give you guys a couple of markers here in regards to the ranges. So off the bat, I already mentioned 50 to 70 is a pretty good range to be in, I think, for most people, right? If we have cancer, heart issues, autoimmune stuff, we can go 70 to 100. And the metric we want to look for is going to be nanograms per milliliter. Nanograms per milliliter. In Europe, they do, or Canada, they do nanomoles per liter. And the conversion on that, I want to say, is about 2. You multiply whatever the level is here, and you multiply it by about 2.25, and that gives you that conversion, right? So if we're at about 50 or so on the vitamin D here is sufficient, right? That's the nanogram per milliliter. Multiply it by 2.25. That's about 125 nanomoles per liter if we're talking Europe or Canada. So you guys can make the conversion, 2.25. All right, so 50 to 70 is ideal. 70 to 100 is going to be, if we have cancer, heart disease, immune issues. Now, when we supplement with vitamin D, we want to make sure we're taking D3. If your diet's really great, lots of green vegetables, high quality ghee, butterfat, good K2, then you're probably fine. You don't need K2. If your diet's not awesome or you're not great, or you want that extra bit of insurance, you can always do vitamin K2 with your vitamin D, just to make sure there's an adequate balance there. A lot of your fat-soluble vitamins tend to come and work together. Vitamin D and vitamin K work importantly well because K helps calcium get into the bone. D helps calcium be absorbed from the gut as well. So it's nice to have some K there. So we're really helping to put all that calcium back into the bone that we're now absorbing better in our gut from vitamin D. So it's nice to have that as an insurance policy to make sure we're putting and telling that calcium where it needs to go.
Yeah, well said.